Welcome to My Life. We're back with longtime Oxford resident John Jones. In the first part of our interview, John told us about his World War II experiences, the last of which was in Okinawa, I believe. That's where you were before you came back to the States, right?
Right.
And you mentioned during our break that you were actually on the ship that the surrender was signed on. Is that correct? Tell us more about that.
Well, it's a big ship. I had never been on a battleship before, so we didn't up there walk around and look at the things and really got a good view of it, and it kind of thrilled us to be able to be up there. And so then after they'd signed he and the Japanese general signed the papers. I didn't get to see them sign it, but we got off that ship, and I was trying to remember when we went from Okinawa to Japan, Tyrone Power flew up
the cargo
flew us guys up there, but I wasn't on his plane, but he flew us up there. There's three planes that took us up there.
Did you actually get to meet him?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I met him first in Cherry Point, North Carolina.
Oh, that's right.
And he was over there, and he's real nice gentleman, really was. And I was trying to think of the Yantan Field was the first field we was at on Okinawa, and then from there I was sent down to Kadena Field. That's a different one. It's further south on the island.
Mm-hmm.
And Kadena, I got down there, and that's where I was when the war ended. But I was walking guard duty, because even though you're a mechanic or whatever you are, you can still walk guard duty once in a while. So I was walking guard duty. And here comes this guy going across the field with his lights on, driving a Jeep. And I stopped him. I said, "Hey, you're going to have to put those lights out." "Hey, the war is over," he said. "Did you hear?" I said, "Yeah, I heard the war is over, but," I said, "there might be planes in the air that haven't got the word. So you put them out or I'm going to shoot them out." So he put his lights out. He's grumbling, but he put his lights out. And it hadn't been 10 minutes after I told him that till these planes were already in the air when the war ended, and they probably didn't know the war was over.
Sure.
They came over and bombed us about 10 minutes later.
You know, that was going to be my next question. What was it like going through the experience of being attacked by the enemy on an airfield?
It really, well, we didn't, I never gave it a thought that I was going to get killed. I never thought about that. It didn't seem to bother anybody. They were, everybody got in their foxhole, and if you were below the ground, you okay. Mm-hmm. Unless a direct hit got you. So we didn't really worry too much about that. At least I didn't. And I don't know if the other guys did or not, but they didn't act like it. We just took things as they came, and some things did happen. I mean, one pilot, Captain Green, had gone over and dropped some bombs on Tokyo. That before the war ended, and he was on his way back one night, and he radioed and said, "I got hit, and I can't land this plane, but I got a dead reckoning on the field. All I have to do is hold it, and I'll get there." It wasn't at night either; it was daytime, because I remember he came right directly over the field. He was already headed that direction, and we couldn't see him until his chute opened. That's how high he was. And the planes are so heavy on the engine that they didn't have a gliding ratio at all. They go forward 1 foot and maybe down 12. He didn't really have no gliding, you know. So he said this plane's going to come down. So he bailed out, and we could see his chute open. When we saw the chute open, well, then we got a glimpse of the plane too, and it was coming down. And it came down and landed in a rice paddy. And so the officer in charge told us to go out there, told some guys, not me, to go out there with the crash wagon and see if they could salvage any parts. And it wasn't just a few minutes. They came back and said, "Sir, we couldn't get anything." He said that mud was closing over the tail fence when we got out there. It hit right in the rice paddy and buried itself.
Well, at least he didn't hurt anybody from that.
But that was Well, it was come down like a bomb. I mean, just a big, heavy plane buried itself.
Was he all right?
Huh?
Was he finally okay?
Yeah. One foot had been shot away, and he's hanging by one strand back here on the back of his foot. And his foot had been shot away, and he couldn't land that plane. So, but he landed that chute right in the middle of the field. He kept pulling them short lines, and I don't know how he done it, but he landed in the middle of the field. And the guys got him, and they got him on a ship to go back to Guam because they had a naval hospital back there. And they repaired that because after we went to Japan from there, I was crossing the airfield one day, and who come hobbling along? Captain Green come out and said, "Sir, you came back after you had a chance to go home." He said, "I know I did, but I couldn't do it. I had to come back." So he came back.
Okay, now, after Okinawa, where did you go from there?
From Okinawa. Well, like I say, we went to, I don't know if I told you, but when we flew up with Tyrone Power, flew one of the planes, he flew us all up there to Yokosuka. They pronounced it Yokosuka, but it's actually pronounced Yokosuka. Mm-hmm. So that's where we went. And that
was that
right,
closer to Japan?
Yeah, that was in Japan.
In Japan.
Yeah, right close to Yokohama, which is flattened completely in. And
so that was after the war was over?
Yeah, after the war was over.
Okay.
And so...
What kinds of things did you do then? I mean, the war was over, so what did they have you do?
Well, we still had our duties as an aircraft mechanic because the planes were there and we had to keep them serviced. They didn't do a whole lot. They'd go up once in a while, but there wasn't much for them to do, so everybody had a kind of easy way of it. Kind of enjoyed it.
How were you treated by Japanese civilians at that point?
When we first went in there, we didn't see any Japanese men and women on the street whatsoever. But we saw little kids. And so we had this K rations and chocolate bar in it, and we just giving these little kids a chocolate bar. And it didn't take them very long till they got to say, "Chocolato? They wanted a chocolato. So when the parents saw that we weren't hurting the kids, well, then they finally became brave enough to walk out too. So they had gotten tales of, I guess, we would rape them and all that stuff. And it wasn't true, but they probably thought that. So they wouldn't come out in the open until after we'd been there quite a while. Then the people started coming out. But it was a backward place then. The toilets that they had were just a slit trench, and the water would run from the toilet right out to a canal, and that canal passed between this street and the next street, and it smelled bad all the time, and that's the way they lived. So they were far from being any modern people.
They've come a long way, huh?
Yeah, they have. They've come a long way.
Tell me, when you left Japan for the last time, what went through your mind?
What was in my mind?
Yeah.
I don't know. We were all on board ship and we were having fun, and we stopped to eat once, and the sea was going pretty, well, blowing quite a bit, and so you get ready to take a bite out of your tray. You had to stand up at the table on the ship to eat, and I get ready to take a bite out of my tray, and it wasn't mine. Mine was down there, and my fellow's buddy's tray sliding back and forth, and everybody just laughing, thinking it was stupid, and it was. But when we got home, and by the way, while we were over there, we took what was called atabrine, and that was a tablet that would keep you from coming down with malaria. It didn't keep you from contracting the malaria, but you wouldn't come sick with it.
Yeah.
And so, but it was turning your skin yellow, and we didn't realize that. So when we got near the San Jose, where they put us off in California, I looked down there on the beach, and all those people down there looked white. And I thought, man, they look white. And I turned around and looked at my buddies, and my buddies looked all yellow. I hadn't noticed it before.
I'm going to stop you right there because we have to take a break. But I want to hear more about that when we come back. So please stay with us.
Hi everyone. Don't forget you can purchase DVDs of your favorite shows from OCTV, whether it's Minutes by Minute, Our Community Access, or Connie's Kitchen. Just call the station. Our number is 248-628-9658. And enjoy watching all of our shows on OCTV.
Back with John Jones. Last thing we were talking about was coming back to the States after World War II, and you were talking about the malaria medicine that you folks took and how it made your skin yellow.
And I didn't realize we looked so yellow until I saw the people on the beach and they was all white, and I turned around and looked at my buddies and they were all yellow. So it's that atabrine. It keeps you from coming down with malaria, but that is not, it doesn't keep you from taking it. Now I took malaria, I had malaria, and they won't take my blood now for anything.
Is that right?
They say even when my sister was dying, I tried to give blood for her. And I didn't dare lie to them because I didn't know what would happen. They said, well, have you ever had malaria? And I said, yes, I have. And they said, we can't take your blood. Because if you give a patient blood from a malarial guy, in addition to what they've already got, it could kill them.
Right.
So they wouldn't take my blood, and they haven't. To this day, they won't take it.
When did you meet your first wife, May?
Let's see. Gee.
Was it shortly after you came back?
Yeah, I came back to my hometown, and then I came from there up here to get a job because there wasn't any jobs available where my dad was. He worked in the coal mine, and I didn't want that.
So you came to this area from Illinois. Did you move to Oxford right away, or
no?
Probably not.
I moved into Pontiac, and that's where I was when I met her. I was living in Pontiac.
Now, who did you go to work for in Pontiac?
I had to stand in line quite a while, but I finally got into Pontiac Motors after standing in line for a few days, because they were hiring. The only thing is I wasn't getting there early enough, so I got there so early one morning they had to hire me. I guess I was first. so they gave me a job, and things went pretty well. And she was, I think she was still in high school when I met her. So in
high school here in Pontiac?
Yeah. And then she graduated from high school, and I met her brother, and I liked him. We got along well. And so it wasn't long. We started dating, and we got married in Pontiac.
Now, what did you do for General Motors in the plant?
I took the training from General Motors Tech. I didn't finish all the way, but I got enough to become a mechanic, and so they'd send me into the plant to work so many days, and then I'd go back to the tech. But I didn't stay in there and finish the whole thing, and I got a good job in mechanics. I was working as a mechanic, so that's what I liked, and so I started doing that, and I finished with on-the-job training, which is actually better because we got guys that came out of the GM Tech and came in there, and they didn't know anything about how to run a drill press or how to hook up a crane, turn a die over, or anything. They weren't taught that in school, so you have to learn that on the job. So I think I did better taking job training than being in General Motors Tech.
Well, I'm sure your being an aircraft mechanic helped.
Well, yes, I suppose that did, because it's not exactly the same, but it's similar. You're doing the mechanic type work,
right?
And so, and that's what I was, and I really enjoyed it, and I stayed there and worked for them for. No, I retired in '79, and I hired in there in 44, I think it was.
Right after the war? Yeah. You were there for a good long time, weren't you?
So I was there for quite a while.
Now, did your parents move to Michigan from Illinois, or did they stay in Illinois?
After Dad got out of the coal mines and wasn't, and he finally was getting so he was okay, my wife's dad and stepmother, I mean her mother and stepdad, her real dad died when she was 12 years old. because he didn't have any penicillin to do anything, and he had a ruptured appendix.
Oh.
So, but he died, and she was 12 years old. Well, her mother got married again, so they lived on the farm. But he was a painter in the plant, General Motors plant. He was a painter, and they was trying to run the farm, and he had some cattle and everything. And so he said, "You suppose your dad and mom would like to come up here and stay with us? They could be a great help." And so I told them, "Yeah, would you like to come up here?" And they came up and stayed with them and learned to love them so well. They all got along so good, and they raised cattle and they did a whole lot of stuff.
Wow.
They worked there a long time. And Dad was plowing one day, and his pocketbook worked its way up out of his pocket, and I guess he plowed it under. He couldn't find it. He went back and looked, and he never did find that wall. It worked its way out of his pocket. But
now, where was that farm at? Was that right around Pontiac?
that farm was up by
Just outside?
North Branch, up by North Branch.
Oh, North Branch. So that was a ways away.
Yeah. That's where he lived. He drove up from there all the way to the plant to do his painting, because he worked as a painter. And so my dad would farm for him while he was gone. They got along real good.
Wow. So is that where your folks lived for the rest of the? Did your folks spend the rest of their lives up there?
Oh no, they went back later on, and they lived close to my oldest daughter, and her husband, who were still there in Ziegler, Illinois, and they went back and my two oldest sisters' husbands bought them a house, and so they lived in that house until they died.
How nice. Let's talk about you and May. How many children did you have?
Together, me and her had 6 kids, and but the number of children that we had when I come home from work, I wouldn't know how many we was going to have, because she took in any kid that needed to have a home. She took them in, and we had children there that just I'd come home and not know how many we was going to have. So,
but tell me something now. Nowadays, when people do that, the government gets involved. They get paid if they're foster kids, etc. But was all that around when you guys
that
were
was around, but we did not join it. We did not ask them for a license to take in kids, and so they never knew that we took them in, and they didn't bother us.
So these were just kids that you voluntarily
took in.
Okay.
Took care of, yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, but I want to get back to that, okay? Stay with us with John Jones.
Canine Stray Rescue is Oxford's own local dog rescue. Call them at 248-628-0435 or go to their website dogsaver.org and click on the Canine Stray Rescue League link.
Back with longtime Oxford resident John Jones and World War II veteran. We're talking about children. Some of them yours.
Yeah, some of them mine.
Some of them yours, and some of them that you took in.
And the funny thing, my children never seemed to resent the other kids that coming in there.
And how many kids of your own did you have, you and May?
We had 6.
You had 6 of your own, so you had a pretty good sized family to start with.
Right. They didn't seem to resent the other kids at all. In fact, if you ever heard of the Smith Silo Company?
I have.
Well, their daughter, Jackie Smith, was one of the kids that came to live with us because she couldn't get along with the kids, with her mother at home or something. I don't know what the reason was, but we had Jackie Smith there for a long time.
Really?
And never charged any of it anything. I mean, I just thought, you know.
Now, were your kids really your blood kids? Were they really young when you started doing this, or were they older?
My children, probably, well, I can't remember exactly, but it seemed like they was already in school before we started taking any bigger kids like Jackie and the ones that I was telling you about. We didn't take any bigger kids until my kids were in school, but when they're really small, we did take in some children, but not a whole lot of them. But
we're probably talking about late 40s, early 50s here when all this was going on.
Yeah,
What were some of the reasons that these kids were just out there like that?
well, some of them because their families that they came from were drinkers or something, and they'd boot their kids out. Most of them. If they booted a kid out and we found out about it, we'd take them over to our house, and then we'd contact Officer Locke. He helped a lot. At that time, he was a policeman on the force at Pontiac, or at Oxford. And we get a hold of Officer Locke, and he'd help me find out what to do about this child that had been booted out of his house. And some of these people, if they were responsible enough to do anything about it, they'd get a hold of them and make them take the kids back, and they even fined them for booting them out.
Were you still living in Pontiac at this point?
No, I was in Oxford.
Okay, you moved to Oxford, I believe, in 1955.
Yeah,
All right, so that was the time when you started taking in kids, is that correct?
right, I think so.
Okay, and you live actually in Oxford Village, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. Now, over the span of time, how many foster kids did you take in? You told me you figured this out.
Well, she said that she went in and looked at the paper one day in a book that she had, because I had asked her, somebody asked me, and I asked her, how many children have we had since we lived here? And she went in and looked up, and I think she said 98.
98.
98 kids.
Tell me something. First of all, were there a number of parents like yourself who did this? I mean, did you know other parents who were helping out like this too?
Officer Locke helped us a lot, but I don't remember any parents doing it.
I mean, other parents taking in kids?
No, I don't remember that.
You don't. Do you think this had anything to do with the war?
With the war?
Yeah.
It could have. The war could have produced a lot of people that come home and couldn't take it, and maybe they were war weary or whatever they. You know, it didn't affect me that way. I couldn't see any reason for a guy coming home and not being able to function, but a lot of people couldn't.
Yeah.
They come home and I don't know why. I don't know why it bothered them that way.
Tell me a couple of good stories about some of these kids. What sticks in your mind about some of these kids?
Well, one of them, one of the kids, he played a guitar, and I played a guitar. So he used to come to our church and play his guitar, and he could sing good and everything. Well, they moved to Davidson. They moved to Davidson, and I didn't see him that much anymore, but one day they had an accident with their car, and she didn't get hurt very bad, but he got seriously hurt and was laid up for several weeks in the hospital. And I went over to see him, and he didn't know me. And she told me, she said he's lost his memory. He doesn't know anybody. So I said, well, okay, but I still kept going to see him. And when he got out of the hospital, his wife brought him over to my house. And before this happened though, he had a guitar, a Gibson guitar. And no, it was after it happened. He had a Gibson guitar, and she had told me that he didn't want that old guitar, and said I could have it. So I took it. Then he came over to the house with her one day, still didn't know me, walked in and said, I'm glad to meet you. And I said, well, Joe, you've met me before, but you just don't remember it. I said, well, he says, I'm glad to meet you anyway. And he sat down there, and I said, you know what? I still got that guitar that you had. He said, did I have a guitar? Yeah. I said, your wife gave it to me. I said, I went in there and got it and brought it in there. I said, maybe you'd like to have it back. And he sat down there and took the guitar and looked at it and didn't know what to think about it, I guess. He kept looking at it. And finally he turned it over and he took his fingers and he strummed it. And before you knew what was happening, he started picking that guitar. And his mind came back to him right there, right at the table. the guitar brought his mind back. He remembered who he was. He remembered me. His mind came back fully right there at the table. We sat there by the table and he playing the guitar. And I thought that was fantastic. I asked him, I said, Joe, you'd like to have it back? No. He said, I don't want it back. He said, but I'm sure glad you handed it to me, you know. And it was pretty fantastic.
I guess it was.
Yeah.
I have to ask you about, you know, your life. May passed away how many years ago?
She passed away in 03.
03.
Yeah.
Okay, and you married the lovely Beverly, who was kind enough to bring you here to our studio today.
She lived down the street from us. Her kids were always at my house. I knew all her kids, and my kids were always at her house. But I didn't know her. I mean, I knew her when I seen her, knew that she and May were friends, but I didn't know who she was. I'd never met her husband until he was in his casket. Never met him. He lived down the street from us about a block. But so the first time I saw him, he was
You
in
were
his
too
casket.
busy watching all those kids. That was the thing.
I guess. But anyway, I knew who she was, but I really didn't know her.
Right.
And she moved away to Oklahoma back in, I don't know what year it was. But after May died, and that's the same year, I think Robert died. Her man died down there.
So
And,
your wife and her husband passed away right around the same time?
Yeah, somewhere like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly, but I
But
remember
how many kids does Beverly have?
she's got 3 of her own.
So between the two of you, you've got 9 kids.
Yeah.
And you've got grandkids, you have great-grandkids, and I believe you said you even have great-great-grandkids.
Yes. Yes, I got 4 great-great-grandkids. It's so odd. One of my grandsons married married a girl named Ariane, and they had, you know, a couple of 3 kids. One of their kids was in college already, and she was going into the menopause, and all of a sudden she got pregnant. She didn't know what was wrong with her. She said she had some girl that was good at, what do you call this, soda, or I don't know what to call it, but they can decide what you're carrying. Anyway, she got pregnant and didn't know she was pregnant. She knew something was wrong, so she got a hold of this friend of hers, and she come and did a scan or something on her, found out she was pregnant. She said, "Did you find out what's wrong with me?" She said, "Yeah, I found out what's wrong with you." She said, "You're carrying twins."
Well, that was a big surprise.
And that was a big surprise. She had a girl in college already, so.
All right,
so,
you've had a lot of life experiences.
Yeah.
The war, your own kids, foster kids, growing up in a community of coal miners, the accident with your father. When you think back on all this stuff, is there anything in particular that goes through your, when you're sitting there in your easy chair in the evening, what goes through your mind about all this stuff?
Well, it's something that I really feel very fortunate for having participated in it, and I don't feel upset about anything, and I'm sure that the Lord is looking down on me and He's pleased with what I've done. So I'm not worried about that.
If you'd be able to do anything of this over again, would you do anything differently?
I don't think I would.
You know.
I liked what I was doing. I like kids, and had a great time with them.
Well, thank you for your service. Thank you for being in our community and for all you've done for all those foster kids. And thanks for being with us.
Okay.
And thank you for being with us.
I'm glad you invited us over here to talk about it.